made a huge mistake while painting? Well, if so, you are not alone because that's exactly what I do in this video. So if you want to feel not so alone in your painting or hand lettering mess ups, then make sure to stick around until the end and see how I attempt to fix it. Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we are going to be playing with these Kuretake Gansai Tambi watercolors. I am going to be swatching them all and then also doing some painting and hand lettering. I am also testing out a couple of different papers and using a couple of different brushes. So if you're ready, let's jump right into it. If you are unfamiliar with these watercolors, they are kind of a thicker watercolor. I've heard them described as something in between a gouache and a watercolor. You can certainly thin them out like watercolors, but you will see that they can go on quite a bit thicker. So this is actually my second set of these watercolors. My first one I had several years ago and we were building a new house. And so we sold our house and moved into a really tiny apartment. I had a couple kids. I think I was pregnant also. And we lived there for 6 months with like the bare minimum of what we needed. And my area for art and hand lettering and even filming was super tiny. It was just a little corner of our bedroom. And so I took my watercolors and I took all of the individual pan watercolors out of the box and I just poured them into like a little container. And I thought that was a great space saving method, but it ended up kind of driving me crazy a little bit. A lot of these colors look really similar before you use them. And so I just really didn't end up using them because it was kind of hard to figure out what was what, but I really do like them. I like using these for Bible journaling, and so I decided to just get another set. They'd since added, I think, a few new colors to the set, so I went ahead and just bought this bigger one, and I've had this one for probably a couple years, but you can see that some of these colors barely look used at all. I think I did swatch all of them once, but honestly, I can't even really tell with some of them. So I wanted to swatch them all on a piece of watercolor paper, and I can kind of keep this in the box for reference. There was one that came with the box, but I wanted to do it on watercolor paper as well. So for my swatches, I'm going to be using this Winsor & Newton watercolor paper. I have gone through several of these paper pads lately in my own just like personal watercolor, and I really loved it, and I don't think I've really used it before, and I was kind of surprised that I hadn't tried this paper before. And I was kind of comparing it to the Gansai XL paper. The pads kind of look similar, and yeah, I was just thinking they were kind of a comparable product. And then I realized there are only 12 sheets of paper in this pad. So just price per paper, they're not really super comparable, and it makes sense why I liked this one so much more than the Gansai XL. I've tried all kinds of paper and I have different favorites for different products, but if you are looking for a paper, I have really enjoyed using it for hand lettering. I've really been feeling inspired by watercolors lately, and I'm trying to kind of go with that. I know in the past I've kind of done a lot of art and hand lettering that I just feel like I'm supposed to do or that people are asking questions about, and I'm totally happy to do that. But at the beginning of this year, I just wanted to really enjoy what I was doing this year, and I do think that the best tutorials and the best videos and the best art really comes when you're actually inspired to create. I know that when I am like inspired with a new product or a new style or a new technique, I just want to do it over and over and over, and I really think that's kind of where the magic happens. And so this year I just said that I am going to kind of create intuitively, and loving watercolors for hand lettering is not new to me. I think that watercolors are actually kind of the tipping point in my hand lettering where I realized how to kind of create thick and thin strokes. So I had been doing faux calligraphy and kind of just guessing where the strokes would go, and that's super difficult, especially because I didn't really have any tutorials to follow. I was just kind of teaching myself. But when I got a watercolor set and a paintbrush, for some reason it just really clicked with me how to kind of create those thicker and thinner strokes. So I have just really loved and been inspired by watercolor lettering for a long time. I know I mentioned it, I think, in an earlier video. Watercolor lettering videos are not always the most popular on my channel. So when you see a video like this, you know it is truly coming from a creative place, and I really just wanted to honestly play with these watercolors. So I hope that you too can find some inspiration in this process, because I don't think that's just something for me. I think that when we are feeling creative and we're feeling inspired, that's sometimes where the best artwork comes out of. So yeah, if you have been lacking inspiration lately, let me know, and I would love to hear what you guys do about it. I know that I am not the only one who has ever felt this way. So I won't lie, I did not get my proportions perfectly correct. I definitely have an angle going in here at the bottom, but that's okay. I'm going to trim down this piece, and then I'm just going to store it inside of this box here so that I can have it for reference. And just to compare it, this is the swatch chart that I did with just the paper that they gave me, but it definitely looks a little bit different. On watercolor paper, this is, I don't know, just regular copy paper, I think. And so it definitely has a different look from there to there. I found this watercolor postcard size paper that I bought quite a while ago, but I don't think I've ever used it, so I thought that it would be great to use while I kind of play around with these paints. I decided to just paint some loose florals and leaves. This is a combination I've used before, and I love how these colors look together. These paints have such beautiful colors right out of the pan without even mixing. I don't remember exactly where I got the paper. I think it may have been Paper and Ink Arts, but I can't remember for sure. But honestly, this was not my favorite thing to letter on. There wasn't really anything wrong with the paper. I just didn't love how warm toned it was. I kind of feel like it made my watercolors, like, they didn't really pop as much because the background was like more yellowish. I feel like you can really notice it at the end when I'm completely done with the painting and take the tape off. But I do love painting these simple loose florals, especially to warm up, and I just feel like you really cannot mess them up. Even if they're imperfect, I just think they look so beautiful because flowers are so beautiful already. Especially when adding tape to the edges, it just gives it such a finished look, and I feel like it's really hard to mess up. For this next part, I decided to take those same loose florals and combine them with some lettering. So I decided to make kind of a motif instead of painting across the entire page. This isn't something that I normally do, but I loved how these florals turned out so much, despite making a huge mistake after this. But I ended up taking this same design and painting something similar onto a page in my Bible journal. I didn't film it, and I actually still haven't added the lettering to it, but let me know if you want to see any more of my Bible journaling pages. I use an interleaved Bible, which means there's a blank page in between the pages of text, so I have an entire page to paint on without covering up any letters or words, so I really like that. For this page though, I decided that I wanted to add the definition of flourish. There are actually a lot of definitions when you look it up, but I have loved this one for a long time because it's not necessarily what you think of when you think of success. To me, flourish kind of like goes deeper. It feels more like when you work intentionally to create something beautiful and healthy. Flourishing is when you kind of like see the rewards of that intentionality. Like when it comes to success, you could be successful at making money, but you could also totally be burned out and missing out on things in life that are maybe super important to you. But flourishing, I feel like, is different. To me, it feels like balance, like setting a healthy foundation and creating rhythms for growth, and in time, getting to enjoy the benefits of that. Anyway, I know that's not what this video is about, but I have been using my hand lettering more lately for writing things that I want to remember or things that I want to have out and read throughout the day, like quotes, Bible verses, and I guess now definitions. I think this is a great way to explore creativity and fill a notebook and put my art that I make around my home. I don't want my lettering to just be alphabets and tutorials. I want to letter things that matter because words matter, and as hand lettering artists, we have the ability to also make them beautiful. So anyway, this leads me to the giant oops that I made, which I chatted about in real time as I was trying to fix it. So I will let that play for you here, and you can see what I do to attempt to fix it. Alright, so I made a huge mistake with this one. I set it aside to dry, and then as I was filming another part of this video, I think I set a whole piece of paper on top of it, and it smeared. So I'm going to try to use this sand eraser to salvage it, but I don't really know that I can because that M is pretty thick, and so I'm not sure. I think, yeah, we'll see. So what I think might happen is if I erase long enough to get that color off underneath the M, I think I might scrub a hole in the paper. So I'm gonna try, but my expectations are very low. So I may be redoing this page, or I don't know, I could cut it out. I really, really love how the top turned out, so I could cut it out, but then the problem that I have is I did this in a watercolor sketchbook. So if I cut it out, do I risk it coming unbound? So I'm actually getting it off better than I thought I would, but the problem is that this is pretty precise in between here. So you see how it's coming off, but am I going to be able to get that precise enough without like erasing the actual part of the M that I want there? I don't know. I have heard people say that when they make watercolor mistakes, sometimes they end up adding birds to the sky. We actually did that the other day with my daughter. Something happened to her watercolor art that she was making, and we definitely just added a bird onto the sky, and it was perfect. Okay, honestly, I'm pretty impressed how good that looks in between the M. but I still have this streak down here that I'm just not sure I can get. Maybe if I turn it, I'll be able to get that angle more sharp because it's kind of coming off the bottom of my M. So I still want to have that sharper edge. I don't want it to like fade off, if that makes sense. All right, well, you can consider me shocked because that is almost completely gone. There might be just a little bit down here, but that was a pretty bad spill, and I'm not gonna lie, I didn't think there was any way that I could get that cleaned up that nicely. I actually don't even feel any weakness in my paper. I thought that it was gonna be one of those situations where you could kind of see the thinner part showing through, and I honestly can't tell. I'm going to go in and touch up the lettering with just a really small brush. I still have this color over here, and so let's see if I can fix this and make it look good as new. Honestly, I'm really shocked. Then I'm just gonna add a little bit of water to hopefully try to kind of thin it out a little bit because it's painted on pretty thick there. Get that watercolor look back. I should probably stop playing with it and consider this to just be like as good as it's gonna get, but this M is really dark and I love the look of watercolor. So I'm taking a dry brush and so what I did is I painted it on really thick. I added some water, but then so it doesn't dry splotchy, I'm taking a dry brush and kind of mopping that up a little bit. So I've got my shape of where it's gonna be, and now I'm just gonna take that brush that has a little bit of water and a little bit of watercolor on it and just kind of even it out. Whoops, that was too much water. This is probably, I should probably just let it go, but I feel like we can make it just a little bit better. You can consider me shocked. All right, I'm just gonna say, honestly, if I didn't know that happened, I wouldn't have been able to tell. So very satisfied with the way that turned out. And you can consider this an unintentional shout out to this Tombow Mono Sand Eraser. I'm really glad that I not only had this, but that I could find it because it was actually just on the shelf next to me, and that ended up working out perfectly. So here is the final shot, and I will be leaving this on my desk alone, not touching it again until it is completely dry so that I don't accidentally set anything on top of it. So thanks so much for watching. I hope you are leaving inspired. Let me know what you'd like to see next, and have a wonderful weekend.